Okay, part 3 of the John Deere Angry Dorito story. Deere's testing a bunch of different rotaries, including one in a medium-sized farm tractor. Sounds great, right? As Deere found out, that was not the case. See, rotaries can make huge power, but they make it on the big end of the tack. And that isn't where a farm tractor, or a tank for that matter, really needs it. Imagine trying to, get a fully loaded grain cart out of a wet field, but instead of taking off normally, you had to wind the motor to the moon and pray that you don't shell the driveline getting it to move. Furthermore, they're not the most efficient engine on the planet. Sometimes you don't get full combustion, and that means that raw fuel goes out the exhaust port, and they tend to use a lot of oil, which isn't great for emissions. And emissions were starting to become a thing in the early 90s. And what's worse, if the oiling system can't keep up or the oil breaks down, the rotating assemblies tend to get hot, like weld your motor together kind of hot. And Deere never found a fix for that. And by 1991, they'd had enough. They decided they were going to throw in the towel. They sold the business unit, all the assets, to a company called Rotary Power Inc., and about 80 of their employees went with. So RPI kept on trying to find ways to make rotaries work, but ultimately they ended up going out of business about 8 or 9 years later. When they shut the doors, I think there were only like 7 or 8 employees left. So what happened to the tractor and the engines? Well, save for a few, display engines like you'd take to a trade show, most all of it was scrapped, including that tractor. I don't believe that it exists anymore. I wish it did. However, there was one 2-rotor 5.8 liter generator that RPI had set up to run on natural gas, and that one did survive. It was sold in 1999, and I believe it went into a private collection of sorts in Calgary. There's a video on it in the Interesting Iron article I wrote about this. And apparently RPI's team had turned up the wick a little bit, because this thing made over 1,200 horse on a dyno. Anyway, so it was a neat theory, and it was really cool if they'd have found a way to make it work, but it just wasn't meant to be. Even Mazda, the company who arguably had the most success with rotaries, they pulled the plug in 2012 when they stopped building the RX-8. They keep teasing that they're going to bring it back as like a range extending engine on some upcoming version of an electric crossover, but who knows if it'll actually make it to production. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you want a little deeper dive, or you want to see that one remaining engine left, there's a link in the comments or the bio or description. Anyway, make it a good one. Take care.